Well, hello. It's been a while. I didn't do one a week ago because, as I told you then, it was our anniversary, and I thought it'd be somewhat inappropriate. And I didn't make one yesterday because for the last, almost since I last spoke with you, I've been dealing with a problem shoulder. I have two bone spurs in my right rotator cuff, which eventually will require Tommy John surgery, I guess. And I got an MRI scheduled for next week. And until I saw the doctor and got some anti-inflammatory stuff he gave me, I used up all my oxy, used up all my tramadol, was eating ibuprofen and relying heavily on potent cannabis strains. Anyway, it's getting much better now, and I couldn't type during that period of time because my shoulder, involved holding up my arm. So that's getting better. So hopefully I'll be back on social media soon. In the meantime, I got a few things to talk about. Founders and Legends was the online thing with Luke Gygax. It's his third one, I believe. He runs online on Twitch and what have you. I participated in a recorded panel session on Thursday, and to be running directly in front of the live game that I participated in today. Now it's my turn to bore all you with a neat tale about my latest great adventure. The worm has turned indeed. We were on the Starship Warden, Jim Ward's creation. We were playing MA and Metamorphosis Alpha for the uninitiated. And we got to choose what we were going to be. So we were a party of 6. We had 1 pure strain human, 1 robot, and 4 mutants. A giant wolfoid. Let's see, what was the other? We had a mountain gorilla, a giant mutated mountain gorilla. We had a bipedal Komodo dragon that could walk on his back feet and had a 10-foot long tongue that he could shoot out like a whip. And I was somewhere between 8 and 9 foot, depending upon how tall I stood up. Grizzly bear with mutant powers. And I tell you what, anybody that's thinks that role playing's getting a little stale because you're lost in your swords and your magic and all that. Oh man, go play some post-apocalyptic or some mutant stuff. I mean to tell you, it will renew your fun. I mean, I had these abilities and these skills, these mutations. You roll up these mutations when you create a character. And I had like super smelling, like a double bloodhound. I could not only smell what was there, but I could smell up stuff up to 2 hours ago, and I could detect poison with my nose. And I had deactivation. All I had to do was holler deactivate, and machinery stopped working. It's real handy when we ran into a couple of tank-like robot things toward the end. Well, I don't know. I got it all written down here. What else could I do? Oh, I was my own power supply. I didn't need batteries or energy cells or anything. If I found a weapon, I just automatically powered it with my life forces. That's pretty handy because I ended up finding a laser pistol. And and then I had this magnetic thing that I could detect ferrous materials and bring them towards me. Or as I found out, if they weighed more than I did, be sucked toward them. So anyway, we had a great time. Nobody died. Everybody fulfilled the mission. I think that might be a first in a Jim Ward game, but he was probably nicer to us because it was being viewed by the world, and maybe he was just feeling benevolent. But we had a great time. Much fun was had by all. Many wounds were suffered. We killed a Tyrannosaurus Rex. We killed a 20-foot long was it a lynx with 3 heads? We killed a 10-foot long giant murder hornet. Uh, we beat up a couple and unpowered a couple of defective robots. It was really quite a good time. Jim Lord's a great DM. We were all cracking wise and having a good time, and kind of got my juices flowing again, and kind of got me up for doing this tonight because I haven't felt very good for the last week or 10 days. I've been pretty under the weather. So check that out, Founders and Legends. It's online. They twitched it or tweeted that. Twitched, I guess it was on. Okay, so I was going back, and these were comments that I got since the last one. This is from a person that apparently went back and started watching all my, God knows how long that'll take, all my old videos. This is a comment that was prompted by video number 31. The day D&D Beyond added the pronunciations, 8 August 2017, I brought up the correct pronunciation of the belay and linked your dorks of your video on creating it. Their response was basically, WotC told us to do the pronunciations the way we did. The arrogance. The hubris. WotC, you don't even own the belay. I do. I never signed a creative agreement with TSR, ever. Nothing that I created while I was there belongs to TSR. I also own a bunch of artwork nobody knows about, but I do, logos and such. For you to arrogantly, arbitrarily decide it's going to be this way is the height of hubris. It's pronounced that way because that's the way it's pronounced in my language of my world, Makanda. The common language of Makanda is Makandarin, and that's the way it's pronounced. And I don't give a goddamn what WotC thinks it ought to be. You can't take somebody else's creation and decide to pronounce it a different way. You're going to decide that Lovecraft was really writing about Cthulhu because that's the way you decided to pronounce it. Your arrogance is just beyond belief. Okay, here we go about the censorship thing. Calling out censorship was old 5 years ago. Agree. Now race car drivers are getting fired for racist things their father said in the 60s. I hadn't seen that, but that driver got canned because he was an idiot and he wasn't very good. The satanic panic, the George Bush years, what happened at Turing was bad. It doesn't stop being bad when those same actions are being perpetrated by the left. You know, right there, most of us that consider ourselves somewhat liberal, left-leaning, centrist, whatever, really resent the idea that you put these social justice warrior snowflakes and blame them on us. They're in the, if there's a third dimension, left, right, and they're somewhere else. We'll say that they're askew. I'll be on the left and somebody else can be on the right and they'll be askew. Stop ruining people's lives because your feelings are hurt because of your moral crusade. I certainly agree with that sentiment. You're feeling your butt hurt. Too bad. Okay, and speaking of butt hurt, we'll go to Oriental Ventures. Pulled out my copy just to have a look and found that Gary had expressed thanks to the Japanese players Masataka Ota, Akihiro Saio, and Hiroyasu Kuriyoshi, Takafumi Sukahari, and Yuka Taliishi for critiquing and improving the manuscript on short notice. While it's true that according to the article Raising the Stink, none of its writers were Asian, Gary did call upon Asian playtesters to assist with the project. The author of the article of Dungeons & Dragons Fans Seeks Removal of Oriental Ventures from Online Marketplace cites a YouTube channel where the One E Oriental Ventures book was meticulously picked apart in a 12-part, nearly 24-hour video series. I wonder if any D&D setting, many of which were based upon a variety of European cultures, would hold up to that level of scrutiny called a test for blending of cultures by people of various European ancestry. You're right. I don't like the way D&D portrays Vikings. I also don't like the way D&D portrays barbarian Celtic warriors. So don't, because I don't like it. That's the level of ludicrosity that we've sunk to, if that's a word. All right. I like it when you tell us your real life adventure experience, your real life experience stories. Oriental Adventures was one of my creative juice books for new ideas when medieval knights needed more flavor. Exactly. That was the entire point of what we were putting out, from supplements to these separate books. We're just trying to throw more seeds out into your gardens and see what would sprout up. Here's someone who's commenting on his first night at sea on the USS Independence. So dark and then so overwhelming, the stars. Yeah, when you get away from civilization and the light pollution, the first time you see that unsmogged, unclouded, uncluttered sky, it's transcendental experience. I truly believe that any thinking person that when seeing that would have an experience that would be very profound. And unfortunately, it's getting harder and harder to get away from light pollution. And I do not recommend enlisting in the Navy just to get a free trip out to the middle of the ocean. Because the thing that used to bother me when we were floating out there in the Tonkin Gulf was looking out at all that water as far as the eye could see and 360 degrees and realizing that you were only seeing the top of it. That's a lot of water. Hope you have a great safe vacation on our wonderful Gulf Coast. I'm sure the water is just as warm and the beach is just as beautiful as that here in Pensacola. You're probably right, seeing how they aren't that far off. I used to go down when my parents lived in Florida. I used to go down around North Fort Myers, Naples, the area down there. And we're looking forward to Gulf Shores the same way. If we end up, self-quarantine, fine. We've got a giant house. We'll all fit in it. We're sitting right literally on the beach. Walk off the steps into the sand on the beach. And we'll spend a week together, taking lots of board games, card games, whatever it takes. I'm sure it has a TV. Came across the passing of Jim Holloway just recently. So saddened to hear he was definitely one of my favorite TSR artists. His halflings alone are worth looking him up. Too hilarious. His artistic vision helped shape my mental imagery when playing Paranoia. R.I.P. Jim. Yeah, I was saddened to see him passing too. There were so many interesting artists that TSR had during their glory years. Some of the styles some of the styles were just radically different from each other, and some you liked and some you didn't. And it's amazing the way everybody had their favorites, and that's what they were there to do. They were there to spark your imagination, to paint the backdrops and the scenery and the curtains for the theater of your mind. And we all found those images in different places, but that's you put that in your mind, then you explain it to everybody else, and you got role playing. Okay, this is from the person that's been asking all these interesting questions. AKA the last of the friends questions. Yeah, okay, right. If a wizard loses her voice, can she still cast spells? For example, a wizard is hit with a blow dart coated in a curare that paralyzes the larynx. Number one, I didn't know curare was that organ or organelle specific, but okay, in your world it is. That's fine. Can they cast a cure or negate poison spell on themselves? Asking for a friend. Yeah. Okay. Um, that would depend on the spell. Now, I don't know in your world what those spells require, but most spells most require a somatic, a verbal. You know, there's dried leaves, hand waving, and magic words. Okay, you get right down to it. Now, if the heal spell required magic words, yep, they couldn't say them. If the cure spell involved squeezing an amulet and making a symbol over it, sure. And this, no offense intended, this is a common logic, common sense thing. If the spell has a verbal component and your voice box is paralyzed, nope, your voice box is paralyzed. Easy peasy. It would all depend on the spell and how you make it work. You know, myself, I never really got into making people run out and spend, inordinate amounts of time looking for ground up ashes from this and all that kind of stuff. I always had a handy vendor nearby, I guess. I kind of glossed over that. All right. This is a long one. And I don't agree with every line in it, but it makes some good points. Stereotypes exist because groups of people behave stereotypically. Right, they follow a type. Until the CIA weaponized stereotypes after the fashion of demonizing the enemy. Stereotypes were more of a reason to rise above in prior centuries or be used as a cultural wall to keep the lords and priests from visiting too often. Robbing someone at sword point or with a hell threat is no different than an armed beggar or fancy, read clean, panted confidence artist. I'm not sure what this next line means. Arrow closer also means larger target with better specific aim. Dual wielding conductor directing dueling orchestras. Yes, please. Aren't warriors for another's cause mercenaries? And aren't they doing it for personal physical gain? Then they are. And if they aren't doing it for personal physical gain, then they are cultists and doing it for personal political totalitarian gain. Okay. I think most most player characters are murder hobos. Define that however you like, but basically a group of people running around killing stuff. Now, hopefully they're killing bad stuff, but basically they run around and kill shit. Have I considered a jeweler's monocle for the minis? Yeah, but that's a lot of squinting. I'm more looking at some of these lit up magnifying glasses you can buy now for $20 online. You spend a hell of a lot more buying a good jeweler's loupe, which is what I think you're talking about, that little thing that fits in your eye. And then congratulations on 50 years. And thank you. And then Sandy's became Hardy's Carl's Jr. Yeah, I found that out, but we don't have any of those around here. So we went to Mickey D's and we got our fish sandwiches and French fries and soft drinks. And then we drove around a little while, and then we pulled over on the side of the road, kind of reenacting that night 50 years ago. And then we went to Grater's, which is a local ice cream chain that makes some of the best ice cream I've had anywhere in the world. And we had ice cream cones. And then we went home and we watched TV. And pretty much like what we've done most nights for the last 50 years. Enjoyed each other's company. And that says, thanks, have a nice Liberty Remembrance. I'll tell you, the 4th of July, where I live, is something else. I live on a cul-de-sac. There's 11 houses on the cul-de-sac. Pardon me. I've lived here for 40 years. Over the years, we've had a pretty relatively stable there's only there are no people in the houses now that were here when we're now. There's one house that has the same people in it that were here before we were, and everybody else has turned over once or twice. But hey, it's 40 years, and a couple of them were families that had babies and had to get a bigger houses, whatever. So anyway, we've had a pretty interesting. We look out for our own type of neighborhood within a neighborhood, so to speak. And over the years, we've had many fireworks enthusiasts. And the little town I live in, the little city, actually, it's called Forest Park. Um, and we're on the northern suburbs. Their fireworks crazy. They start shooting off fireworks about 1st of July and quit about the 8th or 9th. And the police are pretty mellow about the whole thing. If they see it's adults, and they like, when I was doing it, when I was younger, we were shooting 3-inch mortars up out of the street, amongst other things. And as long as we had a couple of, me and another neighbor would have a garden hose out there, and we'd have a big galvanized tub to throw the stuff into when it was done, so no burning. We were responsible, and so they'd just drive by the end of the cul-de-sac and wave at us, and we'd, yep, hey, good to see you, officer, yep. And this year was no different, though. The fireworks has increased enormously. In fact, they were still shooting stuff off tonight, and that's nearly 2 weeks later. And the people down the street, well, they were violating safety protocols, and nobody was masked, and there was a jam of people. I'm assuming they were all family, and a couple of them parked in the cul-de-sac, and one of the neighbors in the circle, and one of the neighbors complained because they could, it did pose a threat. So the police came up in the middle of the enormous fireworks display that they're shooting off down there, and simply make them move the cars. Okay, behave yourself, have fun. And so this year was pretty spectacular. Cheryl and I sat out on our front steps and got a free show for probably 40 minutes, because all around us, people were shooting fireworks up out of their backyards. And so we just sat there and enjoyed them, because that's what we did in years past. One year, the guy across the street and I, we must have spent, well over $300. That was 10, 12 years ago, at least. And shot stuff off all night long. So, yeah, I love the smell of gunpowder in the air. Smells like 4th of July. Smells like liberty. All right, last thing to talk about here tonight. I've lost faith in the new old school revival of D&D folks. The lamentations of the Flame Princess crew managed to be a fresh face with stale ideas. yeah, that's a nice way to put it. The fact that you were there from the start, you tried to help troubled kids, you were in the Navy, you worked with Gary, yet you have the most progressive take out of all the gamers, maybe only second to Ken Hite. We have disagreed, but it's more enlightening than enraging. The new crop of creatures keep complaining about censorship while censoring more than anyone else. I'm so tired of conservatives who have held back mankind for generations, falsely accusing liberals of censoring anything, when in reality they want to start a discussion conservatives are running away from. Yeah, I don't know yet where on the political spectrum we put these revisionists. I really don't know. I don't think it's fair to just brand them as left or liberals, because I think they don't come from the left, or they come from the right. They come from askew. The planet askew. The world askew. Why they feel that they need to do away with something because they don't like it. Instead, they could just say, we think that this thing is thus and such. That's kind of what historians do. and scholars do. But these people are neither. Certainly not scholars. If they were, I would hope that they wouldn't be as ignorant as they seem to be. It's it's kind of like what the Spaniards did to the Aztecs. But more than the Spaniards, it's what the Roman Catholic Church and the Inquisition did to the Aztecs. They found a flourishing civilization getting along quite well all on its own, and through the Inquisition's ignorance and fear, destroyed the entire culture of the Aztec people, including collecting all their pictogram books and burning them because they were too ignorant to understand what they were. They simply thought they were false idols. And so in their ignorance, they obliterated all those pictorial records of Aztec history and accomplishments. They were blindly, willfully ignorant because they believed that they were doing God's work. Which brings me to the question to the social justice warriors and the snowflakes. Whose work do you think you're doing? Your own? Did someone speak to you in a candle flame late at night one night and tell you that you need to go out and change these things? If you don't like them, don't do them. That's like people that don't fish telling me what kind of fish hooks I should use, or what kind of bait I should use, or whether or not I should use live bait or plastic worms. If you don't fish, it doesn't concern you. Go poke your nose in somebody else's business. All right? Obviously, the people that poked all these things about Oriental Adventures, which of those 12-part series did they deal with the 4 or 5 people of Japanese descent that Gary consulted with? They must have missed that page. Or they practiced that oddly prevalent trait, shortcoming, that these people tend to have, and that was they weren't willing to look at the other side. They weren't willing to listen to what someone else said. Or they just chose to ignore it. All right, what's going on? Well, let's see. A lot of stuff going on. You should, let's see, who did I play games with today? Well, I played with John Kovalevsky. He's with Monster Fight Club. They've got some really interesting stuff going on. You ought to go check that out. And I played with Chris Clark, Inner City Games, and their giant Kickstarter, The Warden, this enormous $80 book that the Troll Lords successfully kickstarted. And you should go check that out if you're into mutant science fiction, and by all means. It's like 28 levels of The Warden, the 17 primaries and 11 between levels, and all the maps. It's pretty amazing. Jim Wampler played. You should go check out his Kickstarter on Scientific Barbarian. I happen to know that the list of recognizable writers grew by another 2 today. So, but I won't steal any of Jim's thunder. I'll let him tell people what's going on. This first edition's already gone. It's already grown 25%. Not even his stretch goals. Just he decided to add more content because so many people were so interested in it. Other than that, not going to any cons. In 3 weeks, I'm going on vacation. Next week, I go in for an MRI on my shoulder. And then a few days after that, I go in and find out what we're going to do. I'm sure I got to have surgery in the fall. In the meantime, I'm hoping to get a steroid shot and just numb everything until the surgery. Guess I'll talk to you next week. Dodata Govi. Oh, hello. I'm still figuring out when this thing starts. Welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when the rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's a curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. DSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.